bold statement, namely that I believe that single men are a danger to society. Before I continue to talk about this, I first want to say that I love men. My father was a wonderful man. I had many uncles and they were just amazing. I had a very interesting grandfather that I knew who was lovely. Nobody was perfect, of course, but I really appreciate the fact that the men in my life have been very caring, have been very supportive, and I wouldn't be here today if there hadn't been men supporting me throughout my journey in life. And so this episode is absolutely not aimed at trying to make you as a man feel bad. In fact, I'm hoping that at the end of this episode, you actually will feel empowered, and also that any girl or woman who is watching this will also feel empowered, because we need one another. Men and women need one another, and we need to work together to build a beautiful Africa and a beautiful world. So please bear with me. I'm first going to start this episode by talking about some interesting things that I picked up over the time of my life in terms of reading about history. I like history a lot because it teaches us about human nature. It teaches about what people have done to organize societies in the past. And we can look at what has made societies strong and what has made societies weak. Even if we look at modern strong societies, and many of these are in Europe, then we can unpack what made them strong. Were they always strong? What happened? Where was the turning point? What caused these societies to become strong? And this is for me very important information, but I will talk more about that in another episode. If you have been watching my episodes in the first series where I'm unpacking the Young Africa vision and I'm talking about the root causes of poverty, you will know that I have said that one of the root causes of poverty is the fact that we are having a popular culture which ends up pulling people into sexual slavery. And this is really one of the causes of poverty, ultimately. Let me start by talking about a very interesting perception that I realized as I was looking at history, and about a very particular time as well. Wherever there is a society that is undergoing massive change, and there have been periods like these all throughout the existence of humankind. One of those times was around 1,000 years ago in Europe. One of the reasons for this was because of the inequitable distribution of land. What does that mean? It really meant that there were people who were owners of the land, and then there were people who were working on the land. But then it became a little bit awkward, because as the father of the family died, the land had to be divided among the sons. And the number of people that became dependent on the land just were becoming too high. So at the time there was not much industry, there was not much technology, and so people were really all dependent on whatever the land could produce. Nowadays we are in a very, very different situation, and in a very fortunate situation, but we still have areas all across the world, and specifically also all across Africa, where land forms the basis of economic success. This is not the case anymore in Europe. This is not the case anymore in America. In fact, that is a very significant figure, and I think that is one that we should all think about. In Europe, the number is even smaller. I think that in Europe we have a similar situation, maybe even a greater emphasis on the knowledge economy, on the skills that people have, that people can serve one another through their skills, instead of through producing food. So while food is always the basis of every economy, it does become a problem if whole societies are dependent on the land in order to produce the food. And so one of the things that happened in Europe 1,000 years ago is that there were so many young people, many young men that had no means of sustaining themselves, and they became a danger to society. Why? Because in order to be able to marry, you needed to have a living. You needed to be able to prove that you can make a living. Now, you can't marry somebody, or you couldn't marry someone at the time, if you couldn't prove that you were able to make a living. So now you were not able to make a living because there was no space, there was not enough land available to make a living for everybody. And so many of these young men started banding together in gangs and starting to live a life of criminals, of robbers, and in that way they destabilized society. I find it very interesting that that very exact same situation is happening in South Africa, definitely. I don't know whether it is happening to the same extent in the rest of Africa. But in South Africa we have a youth that is disillusioned with politics, a youth that is angry because it finds itself in a situation where the things that work maybe for their parents doesn't work for them anymore. There is very little access to land. Much of the land in this country that has been put to productive agricultural use is owned by white commercial farmers. And somehow people with small holdings are not yet using the modern technology that is available, but maybe because they don't know about it. Sometimes people are stuck in a way that, you know, how people used to do things in the past. And so in the end, making a living from the land is practically impossible and very hard work without modern technology. And so many of these young people, especially men, move to the cities in order to look for work and end up not finding work and become a danger to society because they are turning into crime as a solution because they have become hopeless about using an honest way to make a living. In that way, they are destabilizing society. There's a quote that says, "Crime is a young man's game." Crime is a young man's game. And so that means basically crime is a single man's game, because a single man is only responsible for themselves. And if there's a family, there is the need to start thinking about the future and about how, if something happens when you commit a crime, is going to affect, how that is going to affect your family. So in the end, having a family, having a wife, having a life partner that is with you through life makes you think twice, unless that woman is a dangerous woman. And I will do another episode about encouraging men to avoid dangerous women. And I'm going to have that episode about women to stop becoming a danger to men. So I'm hoping that you enjoy both of these episodes, because really I'm not trying to criticize, I'm trying to help you understand why we are living, why things are happening in the way they are. And I firmly believe in human agency. I believe that we humans, once we become aware of an issue, we can choose our behavior and we can change our behavior. And in that way, we can change what happens. We can change the story of our life. We have one moment in which we must change our thinking. And as somebody who is very, very grateful that I have been able to understand what the Bible is trying to teach us, and that I have been able to understand and experience a personal relationship to our Creator, our Father in heaven, through His Son Jesus Christ, and with the help of the Holy Spirit, I have understood that much of my behavior I can't change. I can't change without help from the Holy Spirit. So I also teach in my Leadership and Entrepreneurship program that there is hope. You do not need to go through this terrible change on your own. You can ask for hope, because we humans will always disappoint ourselves. And it is only through the strength of the Holy Spirit that we are able to overcome our deepest weaknesses. And God actually works through our weakness to show His strength. So we are not alone. You are not alone. Once you understand that God loves you and that He wants you to live your life in relationship to him. You will never be alone again, and you will be able to hold on to his hand as you walk through the valley of death. Another reason why single men are become a danger to society. We are living in a time where popular culture considers having sex with someone as unimportant and as normal, if you want to call it, a normal bodily function like drinking water. The Bible teaches us that sex is not like drinking water. The Bible teaches us that sex is reserved for marriage, for one man and one woman to enjoy each other. In the Old Testament, we know that polygamy, meaning many women with one man, was quite common, especially when the man was wealthy. It was a symbol of wealth. And in African culture, it's very interesting that it was also an indication of wealth, but the fact is that the women were creating the wealth for the man, and the man was away on hunting trips and on defending the tribe and on punitive wars if somebody had stolen cattle or whatever the issue was. But the man was really at home. So the women would decide when they were ready to have a sister wife who could stay with them in order to help care for the children, help work the land, and not be alone while the man is off on his hunting trips and off on his war making. You can read a lot more about this in a very interesting book by Professor Mandibamba Rukuni called Being African. You can find it on the internet. So, very interesting knowledge and understanding about why in Africa polygamy became the norm. It was purely because of a shortage of men. It wasn't because of any other reason. And also purely because men would die, of course, when they went on hunting trips, and when they went to war, a lot of men were killed. And so women, there was a majority of women, and as a result, they had to share a man. Fortunately, we don't live in that time anymore. We don't have to share our man. We can have one man, one woman. If you look at the demographics, God makes sure that the number of men and women, of babies born, male and female, is always more or less at a 50-50 rate, with slightly more girls being born, because generally there is this provision for women who still die in childbirth. God knows exactly what he's doing. It's when humans start becoming, start meddling with what God's plan is, that we start running into trouble. For instance, governments that have instituted policies defining things about limiting the number of children. That is when and there's a cultural emphasis on preferring to have a boy child. You will see in Asia, in particular in India and in China, that the demographics have shifted enormously, and now you have a situation where there are no women and more men. So it becomes problematic, because where are those young men going to find their wife? But overall, in the world's population, we need to think about these things, and we need to stop meddling with God's provision. We need to stop meddling with God's provision. That's really the one thing that I just wanted to also put out there, is that this whole thing around being a 100% Zulu boy, and as a result you need to have a whole bunch of women, otherwise you can't be considered successful. Please reconsider your thinking. Reconsider your thinking, and don't let anyone lie to you. Read Professor Mandibamba Rukuni's book and understand your culture. Don't let a perversion of your culture inform your thinking. You need to understand King Shaka would kill somebody who committed adultery. Just, if you want to be a 100% Zulu boy, understand what King Shaka did. There's some very interesting information around that, and don't confuse yourself with perverted information that has been perverted by secular Western thinking. Don't go there. understand your culture, if you want to bring things of your culture as a reason for your behavior, understand your culture first. Don't spread lies. And I know that this may cause some upset, but quite frankly, guys, I love you. I love you, and I don't want you to go down a road that's going to cause your self-destruction and cause your poverty. Another reason why we have the situation of single men being a danger to society is because we have this massive situation of fatherlessness that is arising all across Africa, specifically in sub-Saharan Africa, where there is a mining sector. And this is a terrible, terrible situation. In fact, it's something I picked up through my work with youth. I learned a lot of things in the last 20 years working with young people. In fact, I've worked with young people for 30 years. But I only intentionally started really working with young people about 25 years ago, and I have had a lot of conversations with young people, and the information that I have in terms of attitudes and behaviors of young people is informed by these young people. It's informed by the reality of the situation. So the situation of fatherlessness is a terrible, terrible situation that we have, because children don't know their father. Children don't know their father, and it affects their self-confidence. It affects their personal identity. And as a result, they are looking for love in the wrong place. Girls are looking for love with older men. Guys are looking for love wherever they think, and they confuse sex with love. In the end, you have more fatherless children because the men aren't ready. The boys aren't ready to father their child. So they disappear. The girl is mad and starts behaving in a way that drives the man further away. So these are things that we need to stop. We need to understand this behavior and we need to stop it. So I don't have enough time in this episode to unpack all the solutions, but I do want to say that there is a solution. There is a solution. Number one, the Bible teaches us a solution. That's number one. If we follow the instructions of the Bible, we have a solution for all these problems. Number two, if we use modern research about the psychology of a man and the psychology of a woman, we also get immense information to understand ourselves and our behavior better, and to understand our life partner or the guy we love, or the father of our child better. And we can, as women, adapt our behavior in such a way that we become more attractive to the man in our life. Because we as women hold immense power. We hold immense power, and that is what I'm going to talk about in another episode, is we hold sexual power over men. It's very interesting how God has created this, but we hold sexual power over men. Men are driven by sex, and women hold the key. So you as a man, understand your sexuality. You as a woman, and as a young woman and as a girl who wants to marry a man, understand your sexuality. Understand the power of your sexuality and don't abuse it. And you as a man, as a young man, understand that you should not be driven by your natural instincts only. You should be driven by visionary thinking about how you want to shape your life. What kind of man do you want to be? And in this regard, I'm actually thinking of writing a book about the 4 seasons of human being. And one book for men and one book for women, or guys and girls, whatever. But really, it is such a privilege to have lived longer. It is such a privilege to have lived half a century, because I have a half century of time to look back at, of experiences to look back at, of books that I have read, of conversations with people, of information that I gained over the internet. We just live in such a fantastic time. But there's a huge privilege to having lived longer, a huge privilege. And as somebody who has lived longer, I have a lot of hindsight. And so I can reflect on the decisions I made in hindsight, and I can decide, was this a good decision? Did it help me in life? Or was it a bad decision? Did it in fact delay my progress in life? And this is something that as a young person you don't really have. You don't have hindsight. You make the mistake, then you have hindsight. Then you make the mistake, then you have hindsight. But remember what I was saying in the previous episode and even in another episode, and that is that the definition of wisdom is to learn from someone else's mistake. So learn from people who have lived longer. Learn from their mistakes, observe them, see what they are doing, and choose who is going to be your role model. Whose life choices are you going to support, and whose life choices are you not going to support? If you are a fatherless child, I can bet that you do not want to support your father's life choices, because you know the pain that you felt as a child, not knowing who is your father, or even worse, almost knowing who your father is, but having him ignore you and having him just, reject you. That is terrible pain that goes into your heart. You certainly do not want to be somebody who has that behavior towards your children. So thinking about the fact that you need to choose role models who actually have it all together and follow what they say. And one of those things is that, generally speaking, you will find successful families because the men keep the family together. The men don't jump the fence. Yes, of course there are women who jump the fence as well and destroy the family, and that is terrible too. So I'm not saying that all the responsibility is on the man, but generally speaking, because of the popular culture that accepts that it is okay for men to have a whole bunch of sexual relationships, but question whether the same is okay for women, If a guy has a lot of sexual relationships, he's known as a stud or the man or whatever. But if a girl has a lot of sexual relationships, she's known as a whore. So there is a negative connotation to a girl who sleeps with everybody, even in popular culture. And I'm not here to talk about feminist rights and women's rights. I'm talking here about humans interacting respectfully with one another, building successful lives. And that can be best done with one man and one woman the way that God has planned it. God didn't create Adam and Eve and Jenny and Ruth and Maria. No, he created one man, one woman. Everything else that happened is a human-made situation. Everything else is a human-made situation. So, if we want to be wise, the Bible teaches us respecting God, acknowledging God, accepting that there is God, is the root of all wisdom. So let's follow that wisdom. Let's choose that worldview. Let's accept that. And let's do what the Bible teaches us. So, if I'm saying that single men are a danger to society, what am I saying in a popular context? I'm saying the fact that there are all these fatherless children with problems with their identity, with problems with self-confidence, it is holding everybody back to fulfill their potential. And as a result, we are stuck in poverty completely unnecessarily because we have young people who are too scared to do something because their deep-seated sense of self-confidence is missing. Why? Because daddy's not there, or they don't know who's daddy. So if you are watching this and you are one of those fathers who has fathered a whole bunch of children, who has spread your seed around, and you are not taking responsibility for building a relationship with their child, change your way. Your child doesn't want you to support them materially as much as your child just wants you to acknowledge them and love them and spend time with them. It's very interesting. A child will not remember the things that the father bought them. A child will remember the times the father spent with them. And we need to stop. We need to absolutely not just stop, end. We need to end fatherlessness. In the same way as we need to end and can end HIV infection. We can end it. We don't have to live with it for the rest of our human life. We can end it through our behavior, and we can end fatherlessness through our choices and our behavior. And We are endangering society by allowing everybody to believe the lie of the devil that sex is like drinking water. It's not. It's not like drinking water. Sex is a special gift that is supposed to be enjoyed in a marriage between one man and one woman. That is why God created sex. A fantastic gift. You will never have as good sex as with your married lifelong partner. You will not have the same experience of intimacy with anyone else. You will not have it. I can tell you that from own experience. I was so privileged to be married and with a wonderful man who really enjoyed sex and who really enabled me to express my sexuality as well. And you need to be safe. A girl needs to be safe before she can do that. So you, my dear man, sleeping with all these girls, you're not getting the best sex of your life. You're not getting it. You girl who's chasing a man and trying to buy him with your sex, you're not getting the best sex of your life. Understand human nature. And one of those things is really around understanding how a man's mind works and how a woman's mind works. And I can see that I've run out of time for this particular episode. I just wanted to say one last thing, and that is in the medieval times when there were so many young men without work, the governments of the day, which was very much the church, the Catholic Church, which was the general church, was also the political power. And this is a dangerous situation that we have realized doesn't work. And so, because having so much power corrupts, power corrupts absolutely. And having a church turn into a worldly power is not God's plan. And so, anyway, these very clever church people then decided to keep these guys busy so that they wouldn't destroy society and destabilize Europe. And so they used a religious cause to start a war with another empire in order to keep these guys busy. This is an old trick. This is an old trick that governments have used all over history. And even now some governments are using it. I am not going to go into that. I am not a politician. I am somebody who looks at society and at history and at human behavior and says we must learn from the mistakes of the past. If Africa wanted to, with the number of young people that it has, it could start overtaking, building empires in the rest of the world, purely by violence, which is exactly what people have done. This is not God's plan. This is not God's plan. God has a beautiful plan. He wants each one of us to live under our own fig tree and with our own grapevine. What does that mean? That is understanding that you need to have a space, 3 sources of income. There it is, the fact that you have your own property, the fact that you can grow your own grapes, the fact that you can have your own fruit. Those are 3 sources of income for you. Nowadays, he's brought the internet, he's brought technology, he's brought all kinds of amazing things so that each one of us can have at least 3 sources of income and build our wealth in that way. So keep watching this channel if you are interested in learning more about how we can change the situation, how a man's mind works and how a woman's mind works. These are some of the lessons that I will be teaching in the Leadership and Entrepreneurship program, in the modules, in the sessions around emotion, around relationships. The Leadership and Entrepreneurship program is always focused on helping young people understand how to manage their life, how to build their life, bringing the 4 parts of being human into balance, meaning making sure that you grow spiritually in your relationship to God, making sure that you understand that you maintain your body, making sure that you understand your mind and how you can create value, and in that way generate an income and create wealth and understand finance, and emotion, which is all about relationships. And relationships are not just about a man and a woman, a father and a mother and the children. It is about the neighbor. It is about the community. And ultimately it's also about the country and about us all together living in the globe. And just as a matter of interest, the Leadership and Entrepreneurship program starts with personal leadership development, which focuses on you as the individual and helping you to get ready for success. That is a 6-month program. The second 6 months is around, well, it's obviously including holidays, it's a semester. So the next semester is about business leadership development. This is when I focus on teaching you the principles of doing business, the understanding of how to do business in a very practical way. And if you become a student, you will start doing business. I will teach you how to do business, no matter where you are. And then in the second year, which is the level 2 Leadership and Entrepreneurship program, you will learn, in the first semester, you will learn about community leadership development, because we are not living in isolation. We live with people around us, and we cannot be happy as human beings if we are not making sure that we have a safe, stable community in which we can be happy, and in which we can, to whom we can sell our products or services, and with whom our children can make friends. We need a stable, strong community. And then finally, in the final semester of level 2 is global leadership development. And you will see on this channel, I will start interviewing people. I've already started interviewing people in South Africa. Then I start talking to people that are active across the borders of South Africa. I will also be starting to interview people that are living in other parts of the world and that are dealing with youth challenges or are dealing with social challenges, and to learn from how are they overcoming those challenges. But also, very importantly, how is what's happening in other parts of the world affecting what's going on here in Africa, affecting your life. So I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next episode. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss any of these episodes. I'm bringing you a lot of knowledge, a lot of information from all the years that I have lived and read and traveled and spoken to people and done practical things, working in Africa and also working in Europe, working in North America. Very interesting things I have learned, and I'm looking forward to also introducing other people to you who have knowledge that can help you learn from their mistakes, follow their advice, so that you may become wise. So, single man, I love you, but I want you to think about your status of being single and why you are being single. But don't worry, I'll have another episode that can help you clarify your emotions around being single.